Nembe, thank you for being here, sir. We welcome the presence of His Royal Majesty King Joshua Igbagara. I apologize because your domain is not quickly listed here, so we'll do the recognitions a second time to notify that, sir. We welcome the presence of His Royal Majesty King Joel Ibane, also His Royal Majesty King Patrick E. Olamiene, and also His Royal Majesty King Aranka Collins Botuna, and also His Royal Majesty King Owepa Jones Ere III, and again His Royal Majesty King Fupereji Aka. You're all welcome, sirs.
DJ LB's on the mix.
Let the music play on, play on, play on. Feel it in your heart and feel it in your soul. Let the music take control. We're going to party, climbing, fiesta, forever. Come on and sing along. We're going to party, climbing, fiesta, forever. Come on and sing my song.
Hello? Okay. Okay, thank you for those who wish to use the conveniences. As you go out of the doors of each of the exit points, you can turn to your right or to your left. You'll find the conveniences there. Okay, more recognitions have come in. May I recognize the presence of Mr. Obinna Ukachukwu. He's representing the Managing Director of Sterling Bank PLC. You're very welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Please, may we welcome the presence of His Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Bayelsa State. With a standing ovation, please. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, we recognize also at this point the Chairman, Education Development Trust Fund of Bayelsa State, Professor Tonati Ison, who is also a former Minister of Science and Technology. You're welcome, sir. By understanding, he's here represented by Professor Francis Sikoki. Thank you for being here. And then also the Executive Secretary of the EDTF, Dr. Mrs. Alice A. Atuo, and all other board members. We welcome you as our big sponsors. Thank you very much for being here. I welcome the presence also, forgive me for skipping it, His Royal Majesty King Theophilus Omie. And then, welcome, sir. And then also I recognize the presence of Professor Edmond Allison Oguru, former Secretary to the State Government Bayelsa State, and currently Member Governing Council, University of Africa. Welcome, sir.
Give me love, oh. Make we jolly. Give me love, oh, baby. Make we jolly. Kulu, kulu, baby. Baby, make we jolly. Kulu, kulu, baby. Baby, make we jolly. Give me love, oh. Make we jolly. Give me love, oh, baby. Make we jolly. Kulu, kulu, baby. Baby, make we jolly. Kulu, kulu, baby. Baby, make we jolly, why, why? You make me go out. Why, why? You make me go out. Why, why? You make me go out. You make me go out. Why they do like you know they love? When you know say na me they love. Why they do like you know they love? When you know say na me they love. Kulu baby, my sweetie, sweetie. si la pesmide. Oh, kamwagi fige me mwendi madu jabrego. Kamwagi fige me omokunu kabrego. Atawago kuwazanava, aruwago kazanava. Chacha, my brothers anava. Atawago kuwazanava, faruwago kazanava. My brothers anava. Okunu kabia iriambamba. Hachara kibia ibalagano. Agemuole, kedifemre betumuma. You dey on your own, they gon' find you come. Ripana don't find another man.
Hello.
A man who wishes to be God, wants to solve all the problems of the world. Here today, but gone tomorrow. Wants to know, can we choose our fate? Can we choose our fate? Oh, can we choose our fate? Can we choose our fate? Oh,
I'll bring it to you. There's a flip.
hey man, I wanna sasagi. Akaraka webu. Hey man, where cushion. Emenumana, here do ya. Agamacha, audio Rikima. Characha, Akaraka web. Hey man, I wanna sasagi. Characha. Akaraka web. Hey mo, where cushion, where cushion, where cushion, where cushion, where cushion.
Nobody knows the man. Nobody knows the man. Oye Maroche.
Please.
Sunday, Bina Gai Jagile Pilana Zoe, a Sunday, 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 a Sunday. A Sunday, Bina Gai Jagile Kulana Zoe. A Sunday, a Sunday, Bina Gai Jagile Kulana Zoe. A Sunday, a Sunday, a Sunday, a Sunday, a Sunday. A Sunday, a Sunday, a Sunday, a Sunday, a Sunday. Na Dubai, by Nagaije. Na Dubai, by Nagaije. Yeah.
Shall we please settle down? The Excellencies will be joining us very, very shortly. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I announce the arrival of His Excellency, Distinguished Senator Doye Diri, the Miracle Executive Governor of Bayelsa State. Of course, he is coming in with His Excellency Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, GCON, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and His Excellency Distinguished Senator Lawrence Irujakbo, the workaholic and resourceful Deputy Governor of Bayelsa State. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen,
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, shall we please rise for the national anthem? Please remain standing as we take the opening prayer by Reverend Father Joseph Opelema, the Chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Bayelsa State Branch.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Almighty God, our Father, you made the human person in your own image and likeness, and you gave him wisdom and knowledge. You gave him knowledge to improve himself and to improve society. We thank you for the knowledge that we have. We thank you for Bayelsa State, and we thank you for gathering us together to discuss on how to improve education in Bayelsa State. Lord, bless all our endeavors. Bless the efforts of government. Bless the efforts of all who are involved in educating our children. Bless all who are gathered here to discuss on this theme. Lord, shower blessings upon all of us. Be the beginning and the end of all we shall do and say here, through Christ our Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Shall we please be seated? His Excellency Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCON, GCFR, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. His Excellency Distinguished Senator Doye Diri, the Miracle Executive Governor of Bayelsa State, His Excellency Distinguished Senator Lawrence Erujakbo, the resourceful and workaholic Deputy Governor of Bayelsa State. I'd like to recognize members of the National Assembly who are here, in particular the member representing Sagwamai Kirimo Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives, Honorable Fred Agbedi, and his counterpart of Ogbea Federal Constituency, Fred Obua. I'd like to recognize His Royal Majesty King Alfred Papa Priye Jetespef, Seria II, Amayanaba of Tumumbras, Chairman Traditional Rulers Council, Bayelsa State, and first military governor of Old River State. I'd like to recognize the chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Bayelsa State, Honorable Solomon Agwanana, the one we fondly call the chairman Akburuku. Members of the Bayelsa State House of Assembly here present, the Secretary to the Government of Bayelsa State, the Right Honorable Komboyi Friday Benson, the Head of Service, Barrister Mrs. Biobelemoye Charles Onyema, MNI, Honorable Commissioners of the Bayelsa State Executive Council here present. At this point, I'd like to recognize Engineer Simbi Kesie Wabote, the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, who is here ably represented by Barrister Esueme Dan Kikile, Manager Corporate Communications of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. Let me recognize other Royal Majesties and Highnesses here present. The Chief of Staff, Government House Yenegua, the Deputy Chiefs of Staff. I'd like to recognize the Principal Secretary, Government House Yenegua. I also like to recognize at this point a one-time member of the House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Honorable Gabriel Africa Onyenwife, who is also here with us. Permanent secretaries, technical and special advisors here present. I'd like to especially recognize our sponsors, delegates and speakers to this all-important education summit, other invited guests, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Education is key in everything we do. Some even say, without education, there is no life. And like the popular saying goes, anything worth doing is worth doing well. The mark of a serious leader is take up responsibilities and ensure that they are properly done. Today we are here for what is a landmark event. Never in the history of Bayelsa State has any government taken up this serious program of bringing various stakeholders to discuss how our education should go. I'd like us to, on this very wonderful occasion, put hands together for the Prosperity Administration led by Senator Doye Dure. The very first Bayelsa Education Summit 2022 with the theme, Optimizing the Delivery, Performance and Sustainability of Outcomes in the Education Sector. Just before we take the first item on the program, I'd like to invite my co-MC, Taribio Walson Oifaware, who of course is going to introduce the safety briefs as they apply to this wonderful hall and edifice. Taribio.
Thank you very much, Abiave. Please, a round of applause for Michael MC. He's done a wonderful job establishing the protocol. You're all welcome to the conference hall of the NCDMB. It's a pleasure to have you all here as we have this education summit. And there's one thing unique about this administration and the Prosperity Administration. It is the fact that education is not only being faced in the classrooms, but the vocational part is also being considered to ensure that no one falls in the cracks. Please put your hands together for the governor and his team again. And now we'll have the safety brief. It's in form of a video, and so they will play it on the screen. Please, we enjoin you to pay close attention as you see the exit points in the course of the video. Please, let's have the safety brief. Thank you.
Welcome to the Nigerian Content Tower, home of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, NCDMB, promoters of the development and utilization of in-country capacities for the industrialization of the Nigerian oil and gas industry. The NCDMB facility is made up of 3 buildings: a 17-floor main building, the ultra-modern conference center with a 1,000-seater hall and a multi-level car park. This facility is equipped with a clinic, gym, and restaurant. The car park is fully automated with a central parking management system and over 300 parking spaces, including designated parking spaces for the physically challenged on the ground floor. NCDMB is dedicated to your safety, so while you're in our facility, it's important that you obey all health, safety, and environment emergency procedures. Please ensure you go through the security checks at the entrance. Stop your vehicle to be checked and scanned, and the appropriate clearance received before driving into the facility. Use your seatbelts. Do not use your phone while driving within this facility. Ensure to comply with the 10 km/h speed limit and the one-way drive-through within the facility. This building is equipped with an access control system, so ensure to go through all security checks to be granted the necessary access within the facility. Ensure to adhere to the no smoking warnings within the facility. The NCDMB building is a smart facility designed and built with the intent of comfort and safety for all users. There are conveniences for male, female, and the physically challenged to the left side of the reception area and on every floor of the main building. In the conference center building, the conveniences are located on both wings of the ground floor and the first floor. There are signages to guide you within this facility. The green Walkman image and arrow indicates direction of exit. It's important to identify exit points nearest to you at all times. Please note that this facility is under 24 hours CCTV surveillance. This facility is equipped with smoke and fire detectors and sprinklers. In the unlikely event of an emergency, the fire alarms blare continuously, followed by announcement over the public address system, informing people in the building on how to safely evacuate. Do not panic. Stop whatever you are doing, leave your belongings and walk briskly to the muster points using the various exit routes indicated for emergency use. Do not use the lifts as they will be automatically disabled during emergencies. Only the stairways should be used during emergencies. At the muster point, a head count will be carried out. Do not go back into the building until the emergency is under control and you're addressed by a competent safety officer. fire hose reels and fire extinguishers are strategically located on all floors of the building. The facility is also equipped with fire hydrants and a breacher inlet for easy access for firefighters in an emergency situation. Do not fight a fire if you're not trained to do so. Your safety is our responsibility, but your compliance to our rules will help us keep you and everyone safe. Have a safe stay in the Nigerian Content Tower.
Thank you very much. Those are the safety tips. We want to believe that we all took time to listen. We don't pray for any emergency, but in case there is any. At this point, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to most respectfully invite to formally welcome us to the very first Bayelsa Education Summit with the theme, Optimizing the Delivery, Performance, and Sustainability of Outcomes in the Education Sector. No other person than the one that has been put in charge of the Education Ministry in Bayelsa State. And that's talking about the Honorable Commissioner, the one I like to call the most gentle of them all. Let's please welcome to the microphone Honorable Gentle E. Imela, Honorable Commissioner for Education, Bayelsa State. Shall we please put hands together for him?
Mr. President, His Excellency, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, former President of Nigeria, His Excellency, our miracle governor, Senator Doyeduri, the governor of Bayelsa State, His Excellency, Senator Lawrence Ewuru-Jakpo, Deputy Governor of Bayelsa State. May I, at this point in time, please rest on the protocol that have been established by the MC. I wish on behalf of the entire Ministry of Education, welcome you to the Bayelsa State Education Summit with the theme, Optimizing the Delivery, Performance, and Sustainability of Outcomes in the Educational Sector. This is the first in a series of planned discourses on the continued transformation of the education sector. May I first thank His Excellency, the Governor of Bayelsa State, distinguished Senator Doyeduri, for wholeheartedly supporting the hosting of this summit and the overall vision of educational development in the state through the various on-the-spot assessment tours of educational institutions, culminating in the hosting of this summit. We express our profound gratitude to the former President of Nigeria, His Excellency, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, for accepting to share his wealth of experience and access of his goodwill for the development of our educational system. Our fulfillment of the task of hosting this summit lies not so much in the fact that the planning and implementation process took approximately 16 months, but rather in the collective efforts to build the future we want. Through the provision of quality education for future generations, as evidenced in the array of dignitaries, experts, thinkers, philosophers, institutions, and noteworthy individuals here present in this hall today. The real drive for hosting this summit is the fact that we cannot pretend anymore about the daunting challenges in our educational environment. We realize that if we must achieve our expectations for our children, then we must discuss and profile workable strategies to tackle A, reducing average annual enrollment, completion, and transition rates, teacher quality needs involving reskilling and upskilling, and school infrastructure and environment upgradation. Within 2 years of the Prosperity Administration, a lot of emphasis has been placed on improving educational access and infrastructure by building more schools. Government has also prioritized science, technology, engineering, and mathematics by establishing at least one technical college in each of the 8 local government areas in the state. In doing this, we recognize the importance of curriculum development, for which your expertise will be most appreciated. Furthermore, the Ministry of Education is working with Microsoft Corporation since 2021 on education transformation towards the training of 12,000 teachers on critical skills and about 90,000 public secondary school students on e-learning capabilities. To quote Malcolm X, education is a passport to the future. For tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. This is exactly what we have gathered here to do. We trust your judgment and will place appropriate emphasis on your expertise and opinions as we build our education plans, policies, blueprints, and strategies for the next 15 years. We welcome and thank all our sponsors who have supported us in this very important task of educational development. You are and will always remain our partners. On behalf of the planners of the Bayelsa State Education Summit and all critical stakeholders of education, I welcome you to Bayelsa State, the glory of all land. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Bayelsa State, Honorable Gentle Epilefa Emela. Please, another round of applause for him. It's one thing to have a vision, it's another thing to have a vision carrier, and indeed he is a vision carrier. Thank you very much, sir. We're moving now to delivering the summit roadmap, the philosophy of the Bayelsa State Education Summit, and this will be done by the chairman of the Yenagoa Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Barrister Womit Jones Idikio. Please put your hands together for him as he steps forward to take that.
Take it back from me. Back. Okay. So I can transition from there. Okay. His Excellency, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, His Excellency, the Miracle Governor of Bayelsa State, Distinguished Senator Doye Diri, His Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Bayelsa State, Distinguished Senator Lawrence Erujakbo, may I please rest on existing protocols as already laid out. My task here is very simple, to lay before us the philosophy behind the hosting of the Bayelsa State Education Summit. The development of every nation has as its bedrock in education. What we develop and educate today forms how we develop in future. So this is Bayelsa State. Our logo is there, and that represents the total number of local governments we have in Bayelsa State. But these are challenges which we are bringing before our experts, our thinkers, and philosophers. Bayelsa State is very unique We have 8 local governments, and we have 547 primary schools and 197 secondary schools. However, 80% of those local governments, 80% of the schools are in riverine areas, spread across about 6 local governments, but mostly affected in Brass local government, Ekirimo and Southern Ijaw having the largest number of schools that the government manages. We have educational institutions, and I'll spread them out like this. We have 3 universities, 547 primary schools, 195 secondary schools. There is 1 polytechnic. There are 16 technical colleges and craft development centers, including the 1 technical college per local government as expressed by the Miracle administration. There is 1 College of Health Technology. There is 1 Institute of Entrepreneurship and 1 Institute of Tourism and Hospitality. There is 1 School of Nursing. These are the specialized institutions that the state government owns and runs. But then again, we look at the total average annual enrollment in all of these institutions. The total average is 191,000 average annual enrollment in all of these institutions. And this spreads across the primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions. And of that, 89% of the total number we've talked about here are in primary and post-primary institutions. In tertiary institutions, we have about 21,000 enrollment annually. That's the average. Of that number, 58% is carried in the Niger Delta University alone. 11% spread across the other institutions. Now, this is our percentages. For non-tertiary learners, the distribution is 51.5% male and 48.5% female. But then we look at our literacy ranking in percentages all over the Federation. We are told Lagos is highest with 92%, Osun State comes second with 80%, Anambra State comes third with 75.1%, Ekiti is 74.7%, coming fifth, Ondo is 72.8%, Abia State 72.5%, Rivers State is 70%, and Bayelsa State is 62%, bringing us to the 14th in ranking in literacy all over the Federation. And what is key to us is that we must move up the rankings to anywhere between the 1st and the 6th. What is the new trajectory in education? We're talking now in these days about technology-assisted learning, which constitutes educational planning, educational documentation, educational test construction. Today, we still talk about computer-assisted instructions, where instructions and instructional purposes, curriculum development, education administration and management is carried out digitally. Then digital literacy. How do we score and process educational results? What about remote learning? What do we do about hybrid learning and educational research? Where do we place the premium? Then these are the learning concepts that are on in the world. Is it appropriate for us as Bayelsans? Is it achievable? These are our challenges. Transition to learning. We're going for remote learning. Should remote learning be a part of the consideration of the education system in Bayelsa State? Now, this is the philosophy of the Education Summit, and you see the nucleus there is building coalitions and commitments. Around it about transitions and learning. Now, we start from the left hand of it, which is as is, where we are today in educational development, in our institutions. Who will lead the way? And I think that the government has taken the bold step to lead the way by hosting the Education Summit. But then, going forward, we need to focus on this vision, which everyone would support us to do. Going further, we need to create a shared urgency, meaning it is very urgent, very, very urgent for us to develop education in the way that the world is already going. Again, who will chart the roadmap? One of the key anchors of this education summit is in building an education roadmap, a blueprint, a policy, and a plan going forward for the next 15 years. Now, in doing all of this, we are very much aware that we must align our systems and structures, and we must sustain this momentum if we must move from where we are to where we want to be. We have also at the back of our mind the current trends. Are we training children just to go through school, or we are training them for the job market? But the job market is predetermined by what is going on in the world around us. The first thing is we noted that 133 million jobs are required in 2022 alone in the top 10 areas of data analysts and scientists, artificial intelligence and machine learning specialists, general and operational managers in 10 areas. But then, as the 10 areas are growing, you have 10 more areas that are diminishing, meaning going forward, these job roles will begin to diminish, and that will affect about 75 million people all over the world. These are our thoughts from our very serene Bayelsa State. And from me, it's been a great experience. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Barrister Wame Jones DQ, the chairman of YESIMA. Thank you very much for delivering the summit roadmap and the philosophy of the Bayelsa State Education Summit. And now, without further ado, we move to goodwill messages. And to take the first goodwill message from the Bayelsa State Education Development Trust Fund is the chairman, Professor Turner T. Ison, is a former minister of Nigeria, but he's represented here by Professor Francis Sikoki. Please put your hands together for him. He's already making his way down here.
Your Excellency, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, GCON, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency, distinguished Senator Daoye Diri, Executive Governor Bayelsa State, and his deputy. Your Royal Majesties and Highnesses here present, let me at this point observe all other duly established protocols. I am standing here to represent Professor Turner T. Ison, Pioneer Vice Chancellor of the Rivers State University, former Minister of the Science and Technology of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and presently the chairman of the Bayelsa State Education Development Trust Fund, who is unable to attend this very important summit on account of circumstances beyond his control. He has therefore asked me to convey his apologies to the Governor, His Excellency, distinguished Senator Daoye Diri, and the organizers of the summit. He also expressed his appreciation for the kind invitation extended to him and thanked His Excellency, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCON, former President of the Federal Republic, for accepting to serve as the keynote speaker. Permit me, Mr. Chairman, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture to read his goodwill message. I commend the Bayelsa State Ministry of Education and indeed the state government for their commitment to the educational development of the state, and in particular for organizing this very important summit, which is the first in the history of Bayelsa State. I understand that the outcomes of this summit are, among other things, intended to develop the modes and schedules for periodic assessment of the educational system and specify modes and means of funding. The evidence linking the above parameters to an effective educational system is very convincing and well documented. Over the years, I'm happy to note that the Bayelsa State government has been tackling these issues through the establishment of various institutions and programs, including the establishment of the Educational Development Trust Fund, to address funding gaps and intervene in critical areas in the educational system. We also note the establishment of 3 state-owned universities to produce needed, relevant, high-level manpower. My board, the Educational Development Trust Fund, remains committed to supporting the Ministry of Education to realize its mandate and the vision of the prosperity government. We have, through our intervention programs, provided support for the educational sector in many critical areas. But due to time constraints, I will mention only 10 of them. These include the funding of 11 model boarding secondary schools with a population of well over 4,000 who would otherwise be out of school. 2, the establishment of a 300-capacity computer-based testing center at the University of Africa in Tororua. 3, the establishment of a science laboratory at the Bayelsa State Medical University. 4, the provision of a broadband internet service at the Niger Delta University. 5, we have been supporting the training and the retraining of teachers through the Teacher Training Registration and Certification Board. 6, we provide equipment for vocational training and support for skills acquisition through the Science and Technology Board. 7, the training of special teachers to meet the needs of students in the state-owned school for children with special needs. 8, support for special research programs in the state-owned tertiary institutions. 9, the award of special scholarships through the Scholarship Board in areas of critical manpower needs of the state and the nation at large. And finally, contribution towards the funding of the Students' Loans Board. Mr. Chairman, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we at the Education Development Trust Fund view supporting education programs as a necessary step for emancipating our youth and providing a secure and prosperous future for our people. The Ministry of Education can always count on our readiness and commitment as a strategic partner to support its efforts, just as we did as co-sponsors of this summit. Once again, I congratulate the Ministry of Education for this very important event. Thank you for your attention.
Well, the message, of course, was delivered by Professor Francis Ikoki, who is also a member of the Bayelsa State Education Development Trust Fund. He did that, of course, on behalf of the chairman, who is unavoidably absent. That's Professor Turner. His son. Shall we please once again put hands together for him? I'd like to appeal to other persons that have been scheduled to give goodwill messages to please limit their goodwill messages to 2 minutes for want of time. It's an appeal. May I, at this point, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, invite to present a goodwill message a dependable, reliable, and a trusted partner of the Bayelsa State Government and one of the sponsors of this event, the Divisional Head Education Health of Sterling Bank, Nigeria Limited, Obinna Okachuku, here ably represented by the MD of the bank. Shall we please put hands together for him?
Sorry, I'm representing the MD. I'm not the MD representing the divisional head. So the divisional head is representing the MD. Good morning, everyone. Your Excellency, the former President of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Ebere Jonathan, Your Excellency, the Miracle Governor, Senator Doye Diri, and the royal fathers in the room. I'll stand on existing protocol. I think this is my second time in about 7 days speaking in an event where I met the executive governor of the state. And I would say, not just for education, I am quite, now I speak like a private sector person, you see, just trying to be very practical. I'm quite surprised or quite motivated by what's happening in Bayelsa State and how the state is thinking around the transformation in various sectors. It cuts across health, education, everywhere, and it's quite impressive. So it's not just education that's happening. But concerning this particular summit, it would surprise you that for a long while, I have a lot of vacancies in the office that I can't fill. Why? Because there is a very strong mismatch between the graduates and the workplace, the skills needed in the workplace. In fact, last year, I think it was September, I sent a mail to HR and said, I don't want to see any former banker. Don't get me any former banker. Just go look for XYZ skills. And it's been quite difficult. I was watching a video that was last week, and I found out that the likes of Google, Amazon, and these big companies don't care whether you've graduated from a university again. That tells you that we've got to rethink how we are approaching education in Nigeria, in Africa, and I think that's what's happening from Bayelsa State. How are we going to help out with this as Sterling Bank? You know, because I've been looking for employees and I can't get, what did I start doing? I started training people. So I said, if you're like this and like this, you can come into XYZ training programs. And that exposed us to the possibilities that can abound. And partnering Sterling One Foundation, we started investing in looking for a way to ensure that graduates that come out of our universities in Nigeria are fit for purpose. And we discovered that there is no way we can actually breach this gap quickly if we do not employ technology. Now, if you decide to go change, what's it called, the curriculum, it's going to take a long while. You go through NUC and a lot of things. It's going to take a long while. And the curriculum you must have developed maybe at the end of a 3 years program is already stale because science has moved, the world has moved. And we decided that we're going to be practicalizing it in I'm making that offer to practicalize it in Bayelsa State. How? We're going to invest into digitizing the tertiary education space in Bayelsa State. It's going to be for free. Now I'm the one making that, that donation. Now, what does it imply? If we, through Unify, there's a partner we have, digitize these schools, what we will do is that every university or tertiary education student in that school will have access to global resources, such that if they are graduating from electrical electronic engineering, at the same time, they are probably getting the best professional certification, professional training, at the same time in their university. So they have a degree and they are fit for purpose. We would ensure that we work with our partners to deliver these courses in global international curriculum standards to all the students in Bayelsa State. And of course, we're going to do this by digitizing the states. And we are hoping that when we do this, the Bayelsa State students, when I say students, Bayelsa State students, I mean students that have graduated from institutions in Bayelsa State, will not just stand head and shoulders above their contemporaries from other universities, but they will be ready to come into my office and XYZ's office, other offices, market ready, because they've not just been trained as university graduates, but as people that are workplace ready. We're making this commitment to the Executive Governor, the Honorable Commissioner, and we'll take it up from here immediately after this summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obinna Okachukwu, Divisional Head, Education, Health, and Sterling Bank is representing the Managing Director. Just last week, we had you during the Zipline program, and you were one of those who signed as partners, and it's refreshing and very gladdening to have you here again this afternoon. And I believe it was the way His Excellency was looking at you that made you volunteer to digitize the tertiary institutions in Bayelsa State. And believe me, when it comes to the good of Bayelsa State, he's going to hold you to it. And we have so many recorded versions here, so you can't move out of this one. Please put your hands together for him again. Thank you very much, sir. All right, for just 2 minutes, we'll have another goodwill message, and this will be coming from the lead African New Globe Bridge, Adekombi Worola. Please, where is she? We would like to have it. Please put your hands together for her. She'll just give goodwill message for 2 minutes.
You know, when you stand in front of His Excellencies, all the things you have in your head suddenly just flies out. And so I'd just like to start off by recognizing the past president of our great country, Nigeria, His Excellency, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and our host, Governor. It's my first time in Bayelsa State, and I'm so happy to be here. His Excellency, Governor Duyederi, the royal fathers in the house, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to stand on the existing protocol. I bring good tidings from my organization, New Globe. We have done so many things in the education space, but what particularly caught our attention was a theme for this education summit, which is optimizing I saw it somewhere there, optimizing you know that word optimizing, the delivery, performance, and sustainability of outcomes in the education sector. And for us, this is what we have been doing. How do we do that? I know I have 2 minutes, but I'm just going to say 3 quick things on how we can have these outcomes in school. We call it the backward, I'll call it backward systems of thinking. The first one, to identify the desired results. What should our students know? What should they understand? What should they be able to do The last speaker talked about tertiary, but before tertiary, we have to start from the basics, which is primary, because it is what they know as the foundation in basics that takes them to tertiary, our literacy and numeracy, curriculum expectations, given that there are more content reasonably. Second thing, to be able to determine acceptable evidence. How do we do that? How do we know that the students have achieved the desired result? How do we understand that we can make them global? We've talked about what is happening globally, but we also have to talk about local, and that is why we got the word global and local, not only for Bayelsa, but to be able to compete favorably anywhere across. And so backward systems thinking encourages us to think about the end goals even before we start. And I'd like to commend the Education Trust Fund for all the dynamic things that they're doing. There's still so much more to do, and we'd like to be a partner. The third thing that we'll do in this backward system thinking is planning, learning, experiences, and instructions. We have done this in Rwanda, in Kenya, in Uganda, Liberia, but those are other places. This is our country. And we partnered with Lagos State to do what is called the Eco-Excel. I don't know if you've heard about it. In Edo State, we have done Edo Best. In Kwara, just this year, we started the Kwara Learn. Now is the time to put Bayelsa State on the map. And New Globe is willing to partner to ensure that the learning outcomes of our pupils in the basic education sector is good. And so this goodwill message is to say that we're offering ourselves, just like the Sterling Bank. I won't say whether it's free or not, but there are a lot of things that we can do to ensure that the pupil that comes out of the basic education sector in Bayelsa State can compare favorably, can be a global pupil anywhere in the world. And that is our promise to you. Thank you very much for organizing the summit. We look forward to having an exciting time here. Thank you. I hope I kept to my 2 minutes.
Shall we please once again put hands together for her? Still on our goodwill messages, I'd like to bring on board this time around the representative of a company, a leading ICT company in Africa with competency in delivery of cutting-edge software solutions in the private public sector in Africa. Please, at this point, it is my pleasure to welcome, to make a goodwill message for just 2 minutes, a representative of the Managing Director of Vertebra Limited, Chinwelu Chikwendo. Shall we please put hands together for her as she walks up stage?
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to appreciate the presence of the former president of Nigeria, Dr. Ebele Goodluck Jonathan, and the executive governor of Bayelsa State, our miracle governor, Senator Dore. Pardon me. Oh my God, pardon me. All right, we're all welcome to this seminar. I stand to represent the managing director of Vertebra Limited. Vertebra is an ICT company. We provide technology solutions to the public and private sector. We are not strangers to Bayelsa State. In partnership with the Bank of Industry and Bayelsa State's government, we set up and manage Bayelsa Tech Hub, ranging from software development, data science, graphics, UI, UX, and other technology skills, which is very, very relevant to today's economy and today's world. In addition to that, we support the West African Examination Council across the different countries of West Africa, providing technology solutions, automating the technology infrastructure of WAEC across Africa. We are very happy to be here today. We look forward to work closely with all the stakeholders represented here to bring development and to improve the state of the education sector in Bayelsa State. Thank you so much for having us. We are looking forward to working closely with everyone here.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Chinyelu Chikwin, please put your hands together for her again. And to make goodwill message, next is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, Engineer Simbi Kesie Wabote, fellow Nigerian Society of Engineers, and he's represented here by a former Commissioner of Information in Bayelsa State, and currently, I should say, brand new Manager, Corporate Communications of the NCDMB, Barrister Esweme Dan Kikile. Please give him a round of applause as it comes.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would have done this goodwill in 2 minutes if I was the person presenting as Manager Corporate Communications. But I already have a written goodwill message by the Executive Secretary, Engineer Simbi Kesie Wabote, who is unavoidably absent because of other exigencies of his office. He has asked me to apologize to the governor and the entire team. He has also asked me to express his sincere gratitude to the government of Bayelsa State for again coming to utilize this 1,000-seater conference center. We thank you so much for your collaboration. It is now my honor and privilege to present the goodwill message of the Executive Secretary. Your Excellency, the former President of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, GCON. His Excellency, the Governor of Bayelsa State, Senator Doye Diri, other distinguished gentlemen and ladies. It is a great honor and privilege for me to welcome you all to the first edition of the Bayelsa State Education Summit Series. Gatherings of this nature enable us to learn and share experiences, provide valuable insights to stakeholders, and discuss critical issues in the education sector of Bayelsa State. This summit is an excellent opportunity for global education service providers, educators, learners, and donors in educational development to engage the Bayelsa State government and assist in providing a concise, implementable educational plan and establish a blueprint for infrastructure and funding support, which will prove critical in aiding educational development in the state. Your Excellencies, we recall that 2 years ago, this time, we were in the thick of the pandemic with mandatory lockdowns across several countries. The impact on the educational sector was unprecedented and resulted in the cessation of learning activities in Nigeria, except for private universities and secondary schools that swiftly switched to virtual learning platforms. One of the key lessons of the COVID-19 pandemic was the need to develop appropriate, innovative solutions to deliver learning resources virtually. During the pandemic, different states were forced to release modalities for radio and TV schooling and internet-based learning for students in public primary and secondary schools. These schemes can continue to serve kids and their families even after the crisis is over and may complement other initiatives as they have the potential to reach rural and underserved communities which suffer from lack of educational infrastructure and resources. As the pandemic contributed to revolutionizing digital and online education globally, the NCDMB has shown her commitment to ensuring that Nigerian students are not left behind. Community Secondary School, Otuake, Government Secondary School, Okboma, Government Technical College, Okaka Epie in Yenegua, Community Secondary School in Swale, Yenegua, where we have finished the infrastructure and we're just waiting to install the computers and accessories for use by the students. With the recent success stories of Nigerian startups in the technology space, we hope these ICT centers will inspire and provide the necessary resources for the next generation to reach these same heights and even surpass them. Furthermore, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, NCDMB has carried out other interventions in the educational sector to encourage innovation, such as the Nigerian Oil and Gas Technology Hackathon and Enactus NCDMB Science and Technology Innovation Challenge, to mention a few. Special capacity building training programs have also been organized for 1,500 teachers, secondary school teachers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to improve the quality of education being delivered. As part of the STEM program, NCDMB distributed laptop computers to all the participants. NCDMB has also trained 70 teachers in the KYAN learning device. For our benefit, KYAN, otherwise known as Knowledge Vehicle, is a device that integrates a full-feature multimedia computer with a data projector, TV tuner, audio system, and DVD player in a single, easy-to-use, portable product with an ultra-large display. The KYAN was designed and developed and patented by the SchoolNet India Limited and IIT Bombay. It is described as the world's first 6-in-1 interactive, affordable, easy-to-use teaching and learning device. NCDMB purchased and distributed the device to 29 secondary and vocational schools in Bayelsa State and beyond. In addition, the NCDMB organizes the Nigerian Television Authority Science Quiz Competition for senior secondary schools in Bayelsa State, as well as the Nigerian Content Undergraduate Essay Competition for tertiary institutions across the country. Again, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as part of NCDMB's corporate social responsibility to Bayelsa State, the board sponsored the production and distribution of 18,000 copies of mathematics and computer science textbooks across 10 public schools in Bayelsa State. The schools are Government Secondary School, Okboma, Government Secondary School, Tuombras, Community Secondary School, Swale, Yenegua, Nembe National Grammar School, Nembe, Community Boys Secondary School, Basambri, Community Secondary School, Otokpoti, Community Secondary School, Aleibri, Girls Secondary School, Amasoma, Community Secondary School, Ofoni, and SGS Sample. The informal sector has not been left out by NCDMB because we know that they also play a vital role in the economy, and as such has not been left out in our interventions being implemented. NCDMB has upgraded and established numerous skills acquisition, and vocational centers across the country, and sponsored 1,000 youths to partake in GSM repair training programs, and partnered with the Petroleum Technology Development Fund, PTDF, an annual gas processing company, AGPC Limited, in completing a Center for Skills Development and Training facility in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, to serve the Niger Delta region. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let me state categorically that the lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic should not be forgotten as we strive to consolidate these improvements in the education sector. I urge all of us, stakeholders, to also look to improve the delivery and accessibility of quality learning resources by leveraging on sustainable ICT solutions. ICT and data-driven learning is the new normal. Bayelsa State must not be left behind. Let me once again commend the Bayelsa State Ministry of Education and the event organizers for putting this wonderful summit together. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Well, you just listened to a goodwill message presented by the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, and of course, well delivered by a man of many parts, ex-this, ex-that, and of course, most recently, he was a commissioner in the Bayelsa State Executive Council. Shall we please put hands together for Barrister Isweme Dan Kikile. Next, I'd like to invite a man in whom every Bayelsan is well pleased about, a man who has carved a niche for himself, a former commissioner in Old River State, and megastar is not just a name, he is known, his company is known to have also undertaken mega projects, including this particular edifice in which we are. I'm talking about the Managing Director of Megastar, Architect Harcourt Aduke. Is being represented on this occasion by the General Manager of Megastar, Engineer Said Issa. Shall we please put hands together for him as he comes up to make it?
Good afternoon, everybody. Standing on the existing protocol, Excellency, and others. Permit me, I will say this is my first time of doing this type of a thing. and I would like, if I make mistake in any way, I strongly apologize. The MD is unavoidably absent because of work exigencies. And I was just called out of the blue that we need to give, we need to give a goodwill message. As Megastar, we'd like to thank the organizer of this summit. It's a wonderful one. And we believe in the education system. We also believe that if the education is in the right perspective in the state, it will give peace and harmony, and the businesses will be able to thrive. Thank you, and welcome everybody to this wonderful summit.
Thank you very much. Actually, I do not blame him for running away as fast as he can. This is a very intimidating gathering. We're not just talking about the fact that we have the immediate past president of Nigeria here. the governor of Bayelsa State and his deputy. And we also have the first military governor of Old River State right in this hall. Who will blame them? Now, I'm not even talking about the vice chancellors and deputy vice chancellors that are here, and some of them are very proficient in English language. So you can understand why we'll be intimidated. If I start speaking in tongues too, don't take it personal. Please put your hands together for him again. And now it gives me great pleasure to invite a man who embodies humility, a man who decided that the blood of innocent Nigerians was what more than his ambition. We have the privilege of having the man who instituted the Amajiri school system in Nigeria, a man who is concerned about education, as our keynote speaker at this first ever Bayelsa Education Summit. Your Excellency, they are already standing. They honor you today. His Excellency, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR. And of course, as our keynote speaker, Your Excellency, before you start giving the keynote speech, we would like to have you stand in front of the audience, not behind the podium, Your Excellency, in front of the audience here, as my colleague takes your profile. It's going to be a brief one, because if we take all, we won't be able to leave here. All right. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Please be seated. At least everybody here knows me, so. Yeah. His Excellency, my governor, our governor, thank you for your leadership. His Excellency, the Deputy Governor, whenever I see a Deputy Governor working very well with the governor, because I'm always pleased, and of course you know why. Members of the National Assembly here with us, members of the State Executive Council, then I believe the Speaker is here, and the members of the State House of Assembly, thank you for being here with us. And let me especially appreciate the Chairman of the Bayelsa State Council of Traditional Rulers, King Papa Priye Alfredia Tespiv, which I hope you will say something today. River traditional rulers, very senior citizens have been invited. When I look through the list, we have over 20 professors are here, and vice chancellors are here, and so many senior Bayelsans and non-Bayelsans. I will not bore you with a lengthy protocol, because the moderators have already read that out. But let me join the governor to appreciate all of you for these contributions. Let me especially commend the governor and his team for this program that I will describe it as Governor Doye Idris Education Vision. And I'm quite impressed, even those of us who are Christians. The Bible also asks us to dream and to also have vision. And when you have society that elders and youth don't dream, they don't have vision, then that society will perish. So for a state to come up with a clear vision is very, very, very commendable, and especially on education. As I go on, maybe I'll give a few examples. Because we know the education, even if you look at the national policy of education, it says education is an instrument for national development and social change. For you to develop society, you can't do without education. For you to change the society, it must be through education. And I decided not to give a formal keynote, because in the program they expect me to give a keynote. I decided not to give a keynote by definition, but just to have a little conversation with you here based on my own vision when I was at the state level, and my own vision, to share my vision when I was at the center. Because At the end of this program, the commissioner came this morning to brief me, and I know I asked him a number of questions. You have gathered so many professors, over 20 of them, who will give, and eminently qualified scholars who will give technical definitions and try to shape. And I hope after this seminar, there must be a technical committee that will put everything together to develop a clear policy and a program for the state, maybe for the next 50 years. And he said that is what the state wants to do. I said, yes, that's very commendable. So I wouldn't want to bore you. I wouldn't want to join the professors and discuss the issues of education. I was even expecting Professor Titi Ison to be here. And I thought, I'm happy the representative also, Professor Sikoke, has already addressed us. And when I saw King Spiv, it gives me where I want to start my little conversation. I mean, when he became the military governor of Oyo River State, in 1972, established the River State College of Science and Technology. And one unique thing about that College of Science and Technology that I really have my interest today, that I'm going to dwell on some of those little areas, is that the establishment of Marine Engineering Department. Because River State, we know, Bayelsa River State Delta, we are in the water. And we must, if we are setting up any tertiary institution, we must develop the marine technology. And as 1972, when he set up the River State College of Science and Technology, marine engineering was one of the departments. Maybe one of the first few departments of marine engineering in Nigerian institutions. That is the vision. He may share with us his educational vision. And when Okilo became the elected governor, he now, of course, I think 1978, 78, upgraded the College of Education to River State University of Science and Technology. The River State University of Science and Technology was the first state-owned university in Nigeria. So somebody had a vision. It was the very first state-owned university. And one unique thing Okilo did again was that though the university was science and technology, but he opened faculty of law. He had a vision. Though later on, I think NUC pressurized River State government that they were going to close the law faculty or they changed the name of the university. They opted to change the name of the university to River State University to retain the law program. But if I were the governor, I would have moved the law faculty to the second university and retain that identity that the River State University of Science and Technology was the first state-owned university of science and technology and also the first university of science and technology in Nigeria. Now they are losing that identity. I'm saying this because if his son, who was the pioneer vice chancellor, was here with us, he could have told us the vision of the NPN government then, the educational vision that made them to establish the River State University of Science and Technology and included a law faculty. So today, I'm just going to share your ideas, my ideas with you, my vision. And just like the educational policy states, my vision or philosophy of development is that to develop a people must be based on education. And if you don't give them a functional education, you can never expect a functional society. Even the way people live, people build their houses. If you go to where people have functional education and somebody is building a house in the midst of other houses, you will know that these people are educated. Somebody cannot even build a high-rising building to block the wind from thrashing other people. I remember, like in environmental sciences, they were talking about an example in Japan where somebody wanted to build how many stories building. And of course, they said, no. If you get above this level, 6 floors must go down because you'll be creating problems for other people who are residing in the place. So education, for us to change Bayelsa State, for us to change Nigeria, education is key. And I will not bore you because the governor was in Emerigi the whole day. When I came, I was a deputy governor to Alamesia, so I was a part at the state level for the 8 years. But when I took over as a governor, of course, luckily, there are 2 actors with us in this hall. James Tobias was my commissioner for education, and he's a part of the Professor Ison's team. And of course, Joe Ediri was my commissioner for youth and sports. And when you talk about education, you are talking about youth, children and youth. So what I'm going to tell you was our collective vision with other members of the council. The first challenge I had was that when I think Shell, also one of the multinational oil companies, they published their scholarship list for secondary school, for university. And in Bayelsa State, there was almost nobody. So I confronted them. You're operating in Bayelsa State. Bayelsa State also have the unique history that what interested so many companies to rush into Nigeria was the discovery of oil in commercial quantities in Olobiri that made others to rush in. So we have that unique history to ourselves. So if will you award scholarship and we will not see Bayelsa? They say, oh, Queen, but they did not pass our entrance and so many answers. I said, okay. I told myself that I'm going to produce a generation of children that will never fail anybody's exams. So I said that we must make education very functional in Bayelsa State, and we'll start from the primary. And we are trying to develop what we call, now the state has modified and they are going that proper direction, but what we call a teachers retraining institute. Because then I saw that a number of people teaching at the primary school level were not really fit to teach. They had all the sizes of certificates, number, and so on. Then the NC distance learning too was a big problem to me. Because when I visited some of the sites of the NC distance learning, some of the instructors themselves are supposed to be students. Because I lectured at the College of Education, and I knew the quality of lecturers then, and the quality of students. Then when I saw the people who were teaching them NC, I said, no. I said, the best thing the state will do, we aren't going to compete with anybody. If you want to teach in our primary schools, no matter the certificates that whether you come with master's degree, PhD, no problem, but you will pass through our training program. And when we satisfy that you can teach, I'm not going to give any external body to even assess my teachers. If you get your NC, your TC2, your PhD, and you want to teach at the primary, we'll employ you as a Bayelsan. But then you must pass through teachers retraining, and until you pass, we'll not send you to the classroom because you cannot give what you don't have. So we must strengthen the primary. That's why we started building the teacher retraining institute. We started some 3 buildings. At the secondary school level, yes, my vision, just like Deri's vision, because it was our collective vision, was to make sure that we improve the quality of all our secondary schools. We said that government doesn't have so much money. We cannot do that overnight. We can't even do that in 4 years. But to start with, let us quickly build 2 specialized schools so that the best brains will go around the whole country or the whole state. Do we select from the terminal classes in the primary school, subject them to training and so on, and the best brains will go to those schools, and the standard, well, after that we have to go to the Central District, then of course it could have go down through all the secondary school. But my anger was, why will Bayelsans write exams and they will fail? I feel that it was discrimination, and I promised that I will get a set Bayelsans that will write the exams and they will not fail. So you will not tell me a story. If you ask, I'll ask for the script. So it's good that we have this vision. And of course, my idea of the tertiary education, I stayed there as a governor for just slightly less than 1.5 years, was just like I mentioned about King's Peace and the Department of Marine Engineering. My feeling is that Bayelsa, I always say Bayelsa, we are more riverine than River State, and we are more deltaic than Delta State. If we were animals, they would have described us as amphibious. living in water and living on land. So we expect that anything about Bayelsa, any institution we are having, especially tertiary institutions, we should have the best departments or institutions for marine technology. We should lead this country in anything maritime, whether communication, whether technology, science, anything. And that was my vision that, look, we'll restructure NDU, that the marine engineering, we must get a functional marine engineering department that they are graduates. People will call them to work, they will not even interview them. Because they say, okay, you came from NDU, marine engineering, okay, come, we are going to employ you. The quality will be so high. And we'll get the best people from all over the world to come and teach. So I'm happy with the vision for the governor's dream and what we are doing today. This will show a clear roadmap for where the state will go. Then I was just having this dream, discussing with my colleagues, members of ESCO, and we are going. But there was no we did not approach it this way. This is better, it's more comprehensive, because we are bringing intellectuals from all over the country, including Bayelsans, to shape and develop a program for at least 25 years and let that program go to the state assembly, so it should be backed up by law. So that if I become a governor again, I'll not wake up and go and do something because of my personal interest. Anything that is going to be done must be in the state interest. And you are doing very well. And we must really know where the world is going. When I listen to the other speakers, from Sterling Bank and others, it touches me. When I moved to the center, somebody mentioned about Al-Majri, so maybe I'll start from there. The primary and secondary education based on the Constitution is not a responsibility of the federal government. But government must look forward, envisage problems, and government must think about how to solve problems. When I was the vice president, one of my technical assistants, one Akashko from Anambra State, we discussed and said, look, the crisis we're having in the north, we must find out how. We spoke about the minor religious riots that happened in Kano, Kaduna, Yola, and others. And some group of boys, young boys, appears not to have vision. And can we allow a system like that? We will have crisis tomorrow in this country. So he went around the north, discussed with the clerics who are teaching these boys under trees and very makeshift buildings, discussed with the emirs and so on. And we identified that, look, we have a group of boys, and they are Muslims. So most Muslims, when you understand the Quran, it's like you're more than even a professor of law. And through that Amazigh program, they understand the Quran very well, and you don't underrate them. Some of them have even memorized the Quran, as voluminous as the Quran. So somebody who can memorize the Quran, most of us cannot even memorize the chapter of the Bible. For somebody to memorize the Quran, and you say that person is not educated, they are not telling the truth. They felt they were educated, but the society still rejects them in a way that even their local governments, they cannot employ them even as messengers because they don't have any element of Western education attached to the Quranic education. So you see a group of people who feel they are so educated, they feel regarding Islam, they are even better than professors. And then society appears to neglect them. So they constantly are attempting to revolt against society. So at any slightest provocation, they become wild because of their frustration, because they are already hungry with society. And that's why the Maitasinde religious riots just almost consumed the whole north then. And of course, we are now having this issue of Boko Haram, and all this has to do with education. And that is why the federal government said, look, we must assist the states. These young people must be encouraged to study the Islamic education. But in addition to the Islamic education, we're not going to remove anything from it. They should also take some parts of Western education so that when they finish at that level, primary, secondary school, those of them who want to continue can enter the university and become professors of Islamic study, Islamic law, and any other thing, or medical doctors or engineers, depending on whatever they want. And we believe that if we have that kind of a program over a period of time, we'll pull most of these young boys in the street that could be used for riot. Because it's difficult for you to go and convince educated people to do certain things. And so without education, you can't even manage the security of this country. Of course, that was what motivated us to go into the Al-Majiri education that the young lady mentioned. I didn't even want to mention that. But then, one thing at the state level, when my vision was, look, we must get the Bayelsa the best training. I remember that 2006, when we started building the special schools, we said we'll not wait until those schools are ready. So I think we got about 100 or 120. We asked people to go around the communities and get the best. Any primary school, the first and second, and so on, subject them to entrance, and we selected the best, and we sent them to the best secondary schools in the country. And luckily for them, by the time they finished, I was already in Abuja. So the amnesty was able to send them to US and UK. But somehow, that program didn't continue, because my idea was that every year we'll take between 150 until we get our special schools that can give the kind of education I have in mind. But when I went to the center, it's difficult to, federal government has nothing to do with primary education, secondary education. Even the Al-Majiri program we tried to step in was controversial, and that's why immediately I left, it was abandoned. So my vision was a country like Nigeria. We must be good in technology. We have a space program in Nigeria. Space programs are not for average people. Whether you like it or not, just like they say, the fingers are not equal, cranial capacities too are not equal. So some people are more brainy than you like. So just like we use our skilled footballers to go and play soccer, let us also use the best brain to go and push this country forward. That's why I came up with that program of Presidential Special Scholarship for Innovation and Development. First of all, you will make a first class in the STEM areas in your university. Then those of them who make the first class, so we select the first class from the first class. And the federal government will send you to the best universities in the world. My idea then was that if we run that program for a period of 10 years, Nigerian space program must be developed to the level that even the developing countries will be looking at us. They will be afraid of us. Yeah, because in society, others must fear you. We have a nuclear program where I appointed Dr. Saisa, your own, as the DG, then he served to his 2 tenures. But we have not gone too far. And I was very impressed because immediately I became acting president in 2010. Then President Obama had his first nuclear summit. About 3 or 4 African heads of states were invited. I was invited, though I was an acting president, and Gabon too, and 2 others. And that was the time as an acting president, I even had a visit to the State House. And the Americans were saying, I mean, you are just the first or the second acting president that the president of America will have a discussion with. But the key thing is that why did they invite the Nigerian president or acting president to discuss nuclear? Because we had a nuclear program. And if you have a nuclear program, the world will be afraid of you. And they monitor you. So I said that we must train our best brain so that our space technology and nuclear program will develop to the level where we should be recognized and appreciated, not be treated like as if we're nobody. But today, ICT is key, and I'm quite impressed with is it Vertebra that spoke about the ICT, the young lady? Thank you for what you are doing for the state, and the governor and his team, the vision. Because the world the ICT revolution is the one you cannot forget. Our primary schools and our secondary schools must be fully involved, not just learning ICT by drawing like we see in some of the video clips, but our children must have the laptops and the computers and play with them. In 2017, I attended, as I left office 2017, I was invited for a program, I think the Rhodes Forum in a city called Rhodes in Greece. They called Dialogue of Civilization. That was the program, Dialogue of Civilization. And one of the presentations that interests me was presented by a husband and wife from Russia. Both of them are IT gurus. But one key thing he mentioned as that 2017 was that in 25 to 30 years, most magistrates will lose their jobs. You can see the law is a very conservative profession. But he said that society will begin to use robots to listen to cases, so there will be no human element. So all what the magistrate or the technical people in the chambers of the magistrate or the judge will do is that you present your case, they will just key into the robot, and the robot analyze it and give judgment. So that is where the world is going. So if the world is going to that direction, if that's the direction of the world, then you should know that we have problems on our hands. I don't know how we'll create jobs for the massive youths that we are producing every day. ICT is replacing almost everything. And in that case, our education, the basis of ICT, it has to start from nursery school. You don't have to wait until you go to the university before you go and read computer science like our set people do. Just as I learn English language, ICT is the language. Just like you learn basic mathematics to help even trading and so on, ICT is, of course, you know these days, banking, everything has to do with programs and so on. So I'm quite pleased the level the state is going. That is the focal point, and with the vertebrae, I believe will go very, very far in that. I also say before I drop that, one key thing, the state, when the professors, when they make their presentations, and when they want to develop the policy and so on, please don't forget the importance of languages. I feel very sad that we pass through schools that were not standard schools. I attended Matadei High School then. After the war, then Matadei High School was the only school that, that was the first secondary school in Ogbia. It was established before the war. Then when Governor Spiv became a British governor, it was a class 3 school then. When you finish class 3, then you have to go to Oka to do your 4 and 5. It was the junior secondary school, owned by the Catholic Church. But when King Spiv became the governor of the state, that I'm saying that we need to listen to his own vision for the education, and took over all the primary schools and secondary schools owned by the churches and converted all of them to government schools so that the state will give a clear vision for the education of our children. Of course, I benefited because I also got a secondary school scholarship then from him. So I stayed in the boarding school. I stayed in the boarding school throughout my period without my father spending any money. In fact, the money we paid in my year 1, the first 2 semesters, they even refunded, and we had a lot of money to spend. So they had a vision for that. And when a government has that kind of a vision, then there are things that go with it. I mentioned Matadei because when I was to buy my books for class 1, there was one of these books, Let's Speak French, book 1. And we were eager to buy the books, we want to learn French. Unfortunately, the time I entered the school, the only French teacher they had was transferred to another school. And they had none until I left. And in most cases, we don't know that language is very critical. The time I was the governor, I remember there was a time I addressed some of the elders of Bayelsa State. I don't know whether King Smith was there or could remember. Some of you may remember. And I said that, look, we must make sure that by the time our children finish primary school and secondary school, they must speak at least 2 international languages. We must create global citizens. And that has to be built into your educational policy. You must develop grow-up children that will see themselves as global citizens, not rural citizens belonging to Twoke. We are rural, but our children should not be rural. Then at the state level too, I said that it is very sad for me if I am with, maybe I travel to Abuja or to Port Harcourt somewhere, I may be with my 2 of my commissioners and there are other people from. And if I want to tell a commissioner something, I will use English. We don't have a common language we can use to communicate in Bayelsa State. It is wrong. When I first said that, I remember some challenges I had. Some of my elders in the state said, no, you want to promote one language above others. I said, no. We'll develop all our languages. But we know there's a language that is more dominant. We should be able to develop that. That does not mean that an Ogbia man will not develop the Ogbia language. But Ogbia is not so spread in Bayelsa State, whether you like it or not. So we must take one of the languages that is well spread, make sure that we teach that language in addition to our own local languages. If you're from Ogbia, we'll teach the Ogbia, Nembe will teach Nembe, Epie will teach Epie, and so on and so forth. But then that language, that if we are with others, we should be able to. One thing that sometimes we envy the North when they come together because of politics and so on. That's the number one thing in the North is that everybody speaks Hausa. But not every Northerner is Hausa. In fact, Adamawa State alone, I was told that they had between 50 to 70 different tribes and languages. That's Adamawa State. They have more tribes than the whole of the Niger Delta put together. The Fulanese speak Fulfulde. That's Fulfulde is their language. But all of them speak Hausa. So that brings them together. So if we must come together, we must have one language that we'll use to communicate in this state. My plan was that to establish language centers in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, in Abuja, for our children that are outside Bayelsa State, and strengthen the teaching of languages. I haven't been privileged to get to the center and become, through your grace and the grace of other Nigerians and the grace of God, I be vice president and president. I realized that we, the Anglophone countries, have very weak educational system compared to the Francophone countries. And what I describe it as the arrogance of the Anglophones. If you take ECOWAS, for example, we have 15 countries in ECOWAS, only 4 that English is the lingua franca: Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. The other ones are either Francophone and 2 Lusophone. And you will be surprised that when we attend some meetings, I remember when I was the vice president, I represented President Yar'Adua then when we have a Gulf of Guinea conference in this country again. And in fact, they just neglected me and they were all speaking in French. I felt so angry with myself. And somehow I wanted to learn French. 2 times arrested in Alliance Francaise in Port Harcourt. But language was, then I was already assistant director in UNPADEC. But I couldn't cope, so I abandoned it. I started regretting that, what is this? And you realize that when we have meetings, even for ECOWAS meetings, I remember when I was the chair of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, and when we have crisis in Côte d'Ivoire, then we were holding those meetings. I was the chair, so I said, look, no president should be represented by a minister. We don't want to talk about diplomacy. We want the presidents to attend the meetings themselves I remember the deputy president of the Gambia, when Jammeh was the president, the lady. Once he came for that first meeting, she came, we said, you're a deputy president, so we'll allow you to attend. But the next meeting, if your president is not ready to come, don't come, because we'll not allow you to attend. We don't even use interpreter among the presidents. But if you still look at the Francophone president, most of them are bilingual. And those of you that your children are schooling in the UK, even though they don't own the English language, but if your child is schooling in a secondary school in the UK, they will learn at least 2 languages, including Latin, that even classified as a dead language. Because Latin is key for those who want to be lawyers. Latin is key for those who want to be in the living sciences, biological sciences, and medicine. Most of these stupid names they call that your ears will break. They are Latin words. So if you understand Latin, it's very easy for you to understand most of the scientific names. Because for like in biological sciences, if you're into this nomenclature, naming of plants and animals, even if it is English name and so on, they will Latinize it. They will Latinize the name because that is the global practice. Lawyers, those good lawyers who are trained in those days, before you know, they will bring one grammar to confuse people. They still learn Latin in their secondary schools. So why is that we here in Nigeria, and not just about Bayelsa State, we neglect languages? Language makes you a global citizen. In fact, there are some people that encourage their children to even learn the Chinese language. How do you call it? Mandarin, yes. People. So some of the young people in the secondary school these days, before they finish secondary school, they will be speaking minimum of 3 international languages. It makes them global citizens. So I plead with the Honorable Commissioner that please, the professors will speak. When you set up this, we should not neglect languages. We must develop our local language. No, the state, we have this Bayelsa language project. We must develop our local languages, but we must also develop a language that we should use in this state. Spiff is very lucky. He speaks so many languages. I'm very unlucky. So I think this is key. So let me close by, again, thanking the governor for this vision, for this dream, the deputy governor, the commissioner, members of your team, for gathering over 20-something professors to marshal out educational plan for the state. I believe this is the way to go. Thank you all.
Wow. He has not changed. He remains the Goodluck Jonathan, the humble Goodluck Jonathan we've always known. He remains the one who always gave us hope. He remains the one who once said, if I could make it, you can make it. Let's please put hands together for Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. Well, while he spoke, he made several references to King Alfred Papa Priye Jetta Spiff. When he became governor, aware of the educational backwardness of the then old Rivers State, he decided to set up the College of Science and Technology and also upgraded the Teacher Training College to College of Education and awarded several scholarships to Rivers' sons and daughters to study in universities within Nigeria and abroad. We are happy we have here with us the very first military governor and the very first governor, military or civilian, of Rivers State. Let's welcome to the microphone at this point King Alfred Papa Priejete Smith, Serie II. Take the microphone down. Don't give it to him. Let's please put hands together for him.
Ado, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I feel absolutely speechless when the former president was referring to our little efforts in Rivers State. To God be the glory. I would like to start by saying that you must have read my mind, because this issue of learning French is an issue I've been taking up. Until you can speak that Mino language, you are considered illiterate. And you can imagine a situation we can put this country into if we can become bilingual. I was even discussing with the director of the NYSC that we should start it at that level. All our graduates, when they go to camp, will have to learn French. You can imagine the ripple effect it will have when you go to most of these ECOWAS meetings and so on, because they look down on you, they speak, and until you can speak that, you know, you're not educated. So I'm so lucky, I'm happy that Your Excellency raised it. The second aspect I would like to share with you is that of scholarship. We had a bit of a challenge when we came into office, and then I thought of creating what I call then special scholarship for areas of special need and areas which also call for more funds than the regular scholarship. We've got to the stage in this country now where we need more scholarship for more young people whose parents cannot afford. And it is my pleasure to announce that we're working on a brilliant brain scholarship scheme, which will be computer-based testing and remove all the human elements. That it should be participatory. If we have a portal, and with 2,000 or 3,000 naira, you can enter that portal. It's your own contribution towards it. The most brilliant brains will win and have a 1-year scholarship. And as long as you don't have human intervention, you have direct this thing where the computer will set you this thing at 5 different levels: the tertiary, secondary, primary, then the girl child, and other physically challenged persons. We hope to launch that very soon. I must commend Governor Diri for this summit because, you know, more hands make light work. Getting all the eggheads together to share their ideas under one roof, I think it's brilliant. Mr. Governor, thank you so much. God bless you. The seriousness with which people arrived this morning from all parts of the country. I was away up north, and then the Hamatan would not let us planes to land, but I managed to get down here because I was not going to give up this outing for all the tea in China or the oil in Nigeria. So thank you very much, Your Excellency, and we're still around to help if and when required. God bless you all.
The songwriters always reminded us that as humans, we'll only be remembered by what we have done. Today, even though he's still alive, he's still being remembered for the good things he did as the first military governor of Old River State. And he's been appreciated till date, both in Bayelsa and River State, which formed the Old River State. Shall we please once again put hands together for King Alfred Papa Priye Dete Spiff. At this point, I'd like to bring onto the microphone the man who is proving to us that he's a visionary. Today we are here because of his vision. And God willing, these visions are going to be translated, and Bayelsa and indeed Nigeria will be better off for it. It is my pleasure at this point, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to invite to formally make his remarks and declare this Bayelsa Education Summit 2022 with a theme, optimizing the delivery, performance and sustainability of outcomes in the education sector. No other person than our miracle Executive Governor of Bayelsa State, distinguished Senator Doye Diri. Shall we please put hands together for him as he walks upstage to address this august gathering.
Your Excellency, our own President, the former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, GCFR, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. Your Excellency, the resourceful, workaholic, and miraculous Deputy Governor of Ade State, Senator Lawrence Erujapo, my colleagues, members of the National Assembly here present, let me recognize the Fred Square, Fred Yetiemone Agbedi, and Fred Obua. The Right Honorable Speaker of the Bayelsa State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Abraham Ngobere, and other members of the State Assembly here present, in particular the Chairman, House Committee on Education. Our leader, our father, and our mentor. We used to say the governor of Old River State, but they said the old should be removed. So the governor of both the old and the new River State. Alfred Papa Priye Dete Spiff. The Secretary to the government of the state, the chairman of the biggest and greatest party in Africa, Bayelsa State Chapter, Chairman Kuruku. The head of the service, members of the Bayelsa State Executive Council here present. In particular, let me recognize the Honorable Commissioner for Education. Local Government Council Chairman here present, the Chief of Staff and other principal officers of Government House. And let me, at this juncture, recognize our hosts and my dear friend and brother, Engineer Simbi Kesie Wabote, the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, here ably represented, as they say, by the man who is ex-this, ex-that, Barrister Kikili. The Executive Secretary of the Education Trust Fund and other sponsors here present, special and technical advisors, speakers and delegates of the Bayelsa State Education Summit here present, stakeholders of the Education Summit, service commanders here present, captains of industry, Your Royal Majesties and Highnesses, permanent secretaries, other top government functionaries, members of the Fourth Estate of the realm, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Anuao, Anuao, Aloha, Ado. A very good afternoon to all of us, as part of the language that our former president talked about. Let me begin by thanking God for today. We had envisaged this summit to be held sometime in 2021. And that was the planning that was going on. And of course, in everything at God's own time, He makes it very simple and easy. Today, it is His own time, and we have the privilege of having the cream la cream gathered here today, including our own son and our own father, our own brother, the former president of the Federal Republic. Captains of industries, professors, vice chancellors, royal majesties, and all gathered here today to chart a way forward for our states in our educational pursuit. So we give all the thanks and glory to God Almighty for making it possible, for granting us journey mercies, for those who are coming from far and near. You are welcome to Bayelsa State, the glory of all lands. And we believe that this 5-day summit will be a summit that will be memorable to all of us who will be partakers of the summit. And we are gathered here because we are aligned to believing in one significant thing, and that is the power of education as a force for the good of all in our private lives and even the world over. And I listened to the representative of the executive secretary of the NCDMB. He made reference to COVID-19. And we are all aware here in this country that as occasioned by COVID-19, there was a lockdown world over. Our schools were forcibly closed. And for throughout that period, we started losing our school calendar. And what was the next thing? The next thing was remote learning. But we were handicapped in Bayelsa State. Because you look at the equipments, you look at the facilities to deliver remote learning. To what parts in Bayelsa State? Maybe apart from Yenagoa and few other areas, can we deliver remote learning? In places as far as southern Ijaw, in Koluama, and all of the Keremo, and all those places close to the Atlantic Ocean. And that became a very big challenge. And those were equally noted. And as the former president espoused, whilst we were still in the State Executive Council, headed by him as the governor of the state, there was so much we talked about education and, of course, about our youths and the way forward for our youths. And we were unable, because of the shortness of time, to converge the way we have converged today, to fashion a policy that will guide the educational needs of Bayelsa State, not only for us in our tenure, but for other governors that will be guided when they come in as a policy. And so today makes it very easy, very possible that we have gathered here to look at education holistically. Education, formal and informal. Education, even in our dialects. The former president was using the issue of language maybe loosely and interchangeably with language and dialects. Every other language has a dialect and several dialects of it. The Igbos have their own dialects that if they speak their dialects, the whole Igbos will not understand. But they chose one common dialect that they have so popularized that every Igbo man understands. The same thing applies to the Yorubas. There are a lot of dialects inside of Yoruba. The former president has already given the example of the Hausa. In the old north, before now, we were thinking that everybody from the north speaks one language. But now we know that that is not true. But they have popularized one, which is the Hausa language. And they all understand. Your Excellency, the former president, your government has, in one of its executive councils, adopted Kulukuma as the popularized language, dialect rather, that we will all learn and speak. Not undermining the other dialects. For instance, the Ijaw language, as we have accepted, is not only limited to Bayelsa. The Ijaw language is in Delta. The Ijaw language is in River State. The Ijaw language is in Ondo. It is in Edo. It is in Akwa Ibom. And so what we have agreed is that you have the Ijaw language across all of this. And so if we popularize one, which is Kolokuma, that has been used even in the old eastern region. It was used even in the old River State. And so the literature about it is somehow better. And therefore, we have agreed in our ESCO to adopt that. And not only that, the Minister of Education and the Minister of Ijaw National Affairs have been directed to ensure the implementation of that policy of the state government. And we believe that language is critical, not only for the education, but for the identity of a people. And for the Ijaws to have an identity, our language must not go extinct. And if it's not going to go extinct, then there must be conscious efforts by the government and by the people to ensure that our language does not go extinct. I will not bother you today with few of what we have done under these 2 years. However, because of the critical nature of this summit is going to fashion the educational needs of our state. This summit will look at almost all the sectors that encompass education. And if we are going to move forward after this summit, the critical aspect again will be the implementation of what will come out of this summit. But more importantly, what is going to come out of this summit, both from within us and outside us as a state. And that's why the conglomeration of people here is not just limited to the Bayelsa indigents. You can find virtually everybody from Nigeria who has a stake in education to be here. And I'm happy that we have the who is who in the educational sector that have either been represented here or personally present here. I thank you for coming, and I believe that you are going to help us fashion out a good policy on education. And on the other side, the former president talked about even not stopping it at the point of a policy. Make it a law so that even when we exit, other governors will not come and then jettison it. And so, Your Excellency will also look at that. The possibility of, thank God the Speaker is here, and the members of the State Assembly are in their numbers in today's summit. So we'll look at the possibility of going beyond the policy-making bits of the state and see whether we can actually translate it to become a law in the state for every other incoming government to follow. And that means that for today, we are looking at a 15 years development plan. It follows that maybe at the end of the 15 years, or even before the 15 years end, there must be a review of these policies, because society is dynamic. Society is changing. So the summit may like to also look at the periodic review of these policies. Maybe a period of 5 years, or maybe a period of 3 years, as the case may be, as the summit will decide. Going forward, we decided to deviate a little bit from the regular and the normal in terms of science and technical education. Principally because of what several others have said here, including the former president, who talked about the issues of our people not actually being either employed, or maybe requirements are not being met. And so when you go to certain places, they say, no, Bayelsa, there is no Bayelsa in here because they cannot meet the requirement. Whilst I was still in the National Assembly, I was a member of the Federal Character Committee. And each time we take on ministries, departments, and agencies, I discovered that the employment, the number of those who are employed from states, because we will have the statistics, one of the least was my state, Bayelsa. In fact, in most ministries, departments, and agencies, the figure when they come with the analysis, Bayelsa, 0. And when you ask the question, like the former president said, they said, oh, they are not applying, or that they applied and they failed the interview. And you begin to question yourself. Could it be right? Is it true that our people are actually not applying, or that they applied and they actually failed the interview? And so all of those were the issues that were burning in most of us that has led to today's summit. If Bayelsans are qualified, then we must begin to look at how we can take our rightful place, not only in our state, but in our country, and indeed in the world over. Let us not have the excuse of anybody that will say it's because he failed an interview. And because we all knew the history of some of these, over the years, you will agree with me that there have been changes. Changes to the effect that today you have about 13 specialized secondary schools that was established by the immediate past government. And these schools were named constituency schools, constituency modern schools. And if you go to these schools, you will agree with me that something is happening in our state. And in each of these schools, the students are fed free. Their school uniforms are free. Their books are free, sponsored by the state government. On assumption of office, that was what I met, and I decided to continue with it. And part of what has also influenced me is making reference to what the former president said again about our mentor and our father, King Spiff. You know, the day I got excited most in my life as a young boy was the day I went into class 1 and I was taken to the hostel. And I was given my corner that this is my bed. And we were fed by the state government. So we were fed in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. So for those of us who attended boarding schools, as at that time, in the 70s, up until maybe early in the 80s, you know how we grew up. And you were able to socialize with a whole lot of other people, not only in the classroom. And there is a missing link since they stopped all of those things. And that is why this summit again should also look at some of those missing links. If government will not be able to provide all the resources as it was done at that time, can we involve the private sector? By the way, let me thank Sterling Bank. No, you people, you have taken so much from us too now. You know, you have been our partners all over. Partners in taking and receiving. Thank you for the free digital thing you have offered to our tertiary institutions. We hope that with time, you will even bring it down to our secondary schools and primary schools. You see, when we partner, it is not all about the government. Yes, government will do its own. How are the private sector operators, players, captains of industries, how are they also supporting us? Particularly, you know, when I talk about that, I must mention the IOCs. The IOCs in our state. The trend we see is that most of the things that are being organized is for the whole country, fair and good. Yes. However, the place from where you are operating, there has to be some preferential treatment. We are not against scholarships that are for the whole country. We are not against it. We will key into it. But can you also do some preferential scholarships in the areas that you're operating? And as you know, when you do that, it's part of what you refer as your CSR, corporate social responsibility. That way, the friction that you have today will also be reduced. The friction you have with host communities It is not enough to go and then connive with some maybe semi-informed people there, and sometimes using one group against the other to say, okay, we are doing one water project, we are doing that project. Well, we commend you for that, but that's not enough. The growth of every society is in its educational sector. No society can grow above its own education. The issues around language and development, the issues around Western education, and indeed what we have all come to see as Boko Haram. Whilst I was still serving in the north, in one of the governing councils, the Boko Haram was just starting. And I decided to probe in to find out what Boko Haram was at that time. And they said it was against Western education. In fact, the haram means evil. It means that Western education is evil. So if you look at it, to them, Western education has come to kill their culture, kill their language. They don't want it anymore. But I think that if we are informed, it would have been a situation where Western education should have maybe just added to us. A lot of the issues that have been raised there, including issues raised by our leader, the former president, are issues that we don't have to be citizens only of our communities now. We have to be citizens of the world. We have to open up our societies. And this summit, I believe, will give a lot of ears to that. How can education not be limited to the city here in Yenagoa? In planning for the 15 years for Bayelsa, are we also looking at our far-flung communities by the Atlantic Ocean, in Ekeremo local government, in Southern Ijaw local government, in Brass local government? How will our brothers and sisters and our children in those areas benefit from this education summit that we are holding today? I believe that we have the right people here today, and for these 5 days, I believe that what will come out will be beneficial for all and sundry in Bayelsa State. So it is based on my few remarks that I hereby declare this Bayelsa State Education Summit 2022 tagged in the theme as optimizing the delivery, performance, and sustainability of outcomes in the educational sector open. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Indeed, we have a proactive governor that is not just thinking about the current situation of education, but ensuring that the younger ones who are coming will have a better educational system in Bayelsa State. And I believe this is something worth copying, having the best minds in the education sector gathered together here in Yenagoa, the Bayelsa State capital, for the maiden Bayelsa Education Summit. Please, a better round of applause for His Excellency. When he is speaking, you can see the passion, and I'm not surprised that His Excellency is passionate about education, because he is also a former teacher. Please put your hands together for him. And Before we take the national anthem to formally bring the opening ceremony to a close, I would like to appreciate the organizers of this business summit, the Bayelsa State Ministry of Education, and of course, Wider Perspectives Limited. We have the chairman here with us, Mr. Kalada Apiafi. Please, let's appreciate him. It's a pleasure to have you here. Sir, please, if you can wave. You know, if he's in the church, you will say, someone say hallelujah. All right, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. As the chairman of Wider Perspectives, they are partners in progress with Bayelsa State, Mr. Kalada Apiafi. They are also co-facilitators of the Bayelsa State Education Summit. Please put your hands together for yourselves. You've been patient during this opening ceremony, and the hall is packed. We even have people upstairs. Thank you all. Put your hands together for yourselves. I didn't say put it together for me. Thank you. And so, shall we now rise for the national anthem? May I crave your indulgence that their excellencies and all those on the front row have a group photograph before they leave, please. We'll climb up here, please, for the group photograph. Do we do it down or up? Okay, down here. So their excellencies and all those in front, please join them for the group photographs before we leave. Please remain where you are. We'll need the aisle to be free when their excellencies take their exit. So please remain where you are so we don't have chaos in the hall. Please remain where you are. All right, cameraman taken. Photographs taken. All right, thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Please clear the center aisle so their excellencies can take their exit. Please remember 6 p.m. is the dinner. And we enjoin you to wait behind for your snacks before you leave. There's refreshment. So please have refreshment before you leave. And we'll be back here by 6 p.m. for the dinner.
shine, shine.